So you establish, you look at the will, you see who are the heirs, and then what happens?
And then you have to call the heirs to declaración for the declaration. You have to call the potential heirs to see if they accept or not the inheritance.
And do they have to do that in person, or can they appoint a power of attorney to do that on their behalf?
No, they have to do it. They have to do it personally. Right. They have to do it under really some circumstances. They could appoint a power of attorney, but normally it's something that you have to do it personally. And this declaration of heirs is taking place in front of a Spanish notary, where you do the division of the wealth and respecting this. There are some dispositions in the will that could be legado. Legado is really the way that you establish that this specific property will go to this specific son or daughter, and that you try to allocate already your wealth. Whether that is exceeding or not exceeding the portion, this is something that will have to be seen in order to make the division and the calculation of the inheritance. But in the will, you can already say that I have already given to this son this, and to the other.
Yes. And so, for example, to give a concrete example of that, so you might say, for example, I leave my diamond ring to my sister, and that will be a gift of that specific item to the sister. Whereas if you just deal with the general inheritance, you might say I leave 25% to my brother, and 25% to my other brother, and 25% to my other brother, and that would all be converted into the equivalent of money value.
Exactly.
Yes. So, assuming the heirs decide to accept the inheritance, they all go along to the notary, they sign a piece of paper that says I accept
and
the inheritance.
You do the distribution of the assets, and this is the moment from which you will have to pay your taxes. You have 6 months to from the date of the death.
And so, if I am one of 2 sons and my father has given me half of his estate, and it's worth, say, €1 million, I would be entitled to 500,000 euros of that estate, and I could take the house, for example, in satisfaction of my 500,000 euros, or I could sell the house and get the cash. Is this the way it works?
Yeah, this is something that to be agreed by the heirs. Sometimes there is an institution which is a legal entity but doesn't have legal personality in Spain, which is that kind of community that is built up by you and your brother to own that property.
I see. Yeah.
That's a kind of this is a legal entity. That's Comunidad de Herederos.
Yes.
It's the community of heirs.
Yes.
Which doesn't have legal personality, but it's a kind of community. It's a kind of
that's a framework to organize things.
To organize this. With this Comunidad de Herederos, with this community of heirs, you can organize the ownership of that property if you like, from forever, or you can plan the sale of that property. Because it doesn't have legal personality, will have to pay, each one of the parties will have to pay the taxes corresponding to his personal situation.
And so you've already made the point that when you accept those assets, then that's the point where you have to pay the taxes. So if I accept, say, the house that's worth 500,000 euros, even though I've not yet sold the house, I would have to pay 100,000 euros tax on that inheritance.
Yeah.
Yes. And then once you've decided how the estate is going to be distributed, how does the change of ownership of, say, the bank account or the house, how is that carried out?
Well, you normally you mean the bank account of
your father's bank account.
Of your father.
Who tells the bank that this account now belongs to A and B and not to the dead man?
Again, because we don't have executors, then it's got to be the family members that with a copy of the deed of acceptance
of inheritance.
Exactly.
Yes.
Then you communicate that to the bank, and normally is the family members as well. The heirs will communicate with the tax office, with the civil registry doesn't have to be communicated because they know from the death certificate, and they communicate it to the Social Security, to the community of owners.
Yeah. Yes, so this is left to children usually to do.
It's left to children, although we are, in many cases, because they cannot be dealing with these matters and they don't know how to do it, there are several administrations. When we are international clients of us, they always appoint us like assimilated to executors institution.
Right.
And we take care of all the communications with all the relevant authorities.
Because it would be tricky if you didn't speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so this is a fairly simple process of actually dealing with the inheritance, but one that needs to be started very quickly because of the restrictions imposed by Spanish law.
Exactly. It's got to be happening quickly, and this is one of the strong reasons to recommend to have a will, because in Spain, otherwise then it will be complicated if you depend on the national law of and other jurisdictions. The process will take very much longer.
Yes. I just want to go back briefly and look at this question of forced heirs or protected rights. This concept of Spanish law is really important for people to understand, isn't it? Because in Spain, when someone dies, they do not have the freedom to give their assets to whoever they want. There are certain groups of heirs, certain groups of people who have automatic rights to inherit a percentage of those assets.
Yes.
And exactly how much the individuals inherit depends on their personal circumstances. If you're married, whether you've got children, how many children you've got, and so on. But in each situation, the law says, in these circumstances, this is how much this person's entitled to inherit.
Yeah.
And that means that there is only a part of the estate which the person who's died can freely give to friends, charity, or
a third. Only a third.
Exactly. So now that is Spanish law, but of course other countries have different rules. And so, as the law now stands, certainly within the European Union, a person who is living in Spain, or who is not living in Spain, but who has, say, a house in Spain, can make choices as to which legal system is going to apply in his case.
Yes, by making a will, of course.
Yes. And in that will saying, I declare that my personal law is the law of Iceland, for example.
Yeah.
Now, I have no idea what Icelandic law says on this, but whatever Icelandic law said should happen to your affairs should then be the case. So if Icelandic law says you can leave it to absolutely whoever you want, then that's what happens. If they say everything has to go to your wife, then that's what happens.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is a really powerful tool for people who have foreign nationality to use whilst they're in Spain.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've already mentioned that in the case of the British, there is this additional complication in that English law says that if you die leaving real estate, house or land in Spain, then it's Spanish law that has to apply to that real estate, and English law will apply to everything else that you own. So this is a slightly more complicated and therefore needs a little bit more examination when this situation arises.
Yeah, exactly. And this is really why it's important, very important, to make a will in Spain for Spanish assets, because that's the only way to make sure that, without any deep knowledge of the Spanish law, you are already planning properly within your Spanish will, your assets.
And if you don't make a will in Spain, if you go to the registry of last wills and say, no, there's nothing for Mr. Smith, then you will have to apply the rules relating to intestacy for people who didn't make wills, and then it gets quite a lot more complicated and therefore more expensive.
Exactly, because we have to wait the probate process and the inheritance process in their own country too.
Yes. So really the message here is make a will.
Make a will.
And nobody likes making wills, so force yourself. If you're buying a house in Spain, you're setting up a business in Spain, the first time you have any contact with Spain, make sure you make a will.
Yes, it's something that we recommend when every client that is buying a property, we recommend personally when we have the first meeting, and we send as well a letter.
Yes.
We inform the advantages. If they don't want to do it, of course, it's not an obligatory formality, but at least they were informed about the advantages.
Yes.